to fall off the face of the planet for like the past week. It's been a very odd week. I've always been very transparent with you guys about things, so I'm just gonna be upfront, because especially on topics like mental health, I feel like I kind of owe it to you guys to be honest about these things, because in case any of you guys deal with these sort of things, at least it lets you know in a way that you're not alone. Other people deal with this stuff too. Granted, not everybody does, but there are a good number of people who also deal with the same things. So, basically, this past Monday, I had a very, very bad spell of dissociation, which can mean different things with different people, because there's different types and different severities. The type that I am prone to experiencing is the type where when you're in one of those spells, you basically are not sure that real life is real life, that reality is real, that you are real. You're not even 100% sure if you're alive, dead, otherwise. You just are in a very weird headspace where you can't tell what's real and what's not, and it's really scary. And mine also has the additional weirdness in that when it crops up, I also feel nothing. This goes emotionally, this goes physically, it's just weird. But that said, I'm 100% mentally aware of what's going on around me and of what I'm doing, so it's not like those people that get the amnesic type where when they're having one of those spells, they're just not aware of what they're doing and they have no recollection of it. No, I don't get that kind, and I don't get the kind with the different personalities or anything. It's just a bizarre state where literally nothing feels like real life, and it's very odd. For me, they usually last on average about 8 hours, although I've had one last 2 whole days before. That one was very weird, but that one was triggered off by something different than my usual triggers. My usual trigger that does it is exposure to graphic images of, like, be it on a TV show or in a movie or whatnot, anything involving sexual abuse that's really graphic in its nature tends to trigger this off if I can't get away from it fast enough. And I was not able to get away from it fast enough because my dad wouldn't turn it off, and I had the dog on my lap and she wouldn't get up, so I was stuck there through like half the damn thing, and I was very much not okay. So, I went to bed because I was upset, and I didn't really know this was going to be a thing until the next morning when I literally woke up in the dissociative state, which, that was a first. I've never had it happen almost kind of on a delay like that to where it kicked in the next morning, but then again, I've never had it trigger off right before going to bed either, so that kinda, yeah, that made it very different. So that was a first. I mean, to be fair, I haven't had a whole ton of these experiences in my life, but I have had them since I was a teenager. But yeah, I could probably count the number of times that I have had them though. So I mean, it's still few enough to where that's a thing, but they have happened. But yeah, it went on and took me a few hours to really get my bearings of what exactly was wrong with me. I knew I didn't feel right, but I couldn't quite twig what was going on for a while until I ran into something and realized, shit, I didn't feel anything. I know what's going on now. I know what's wrong with me. And it's not like the same thing as like sitting on your leg and having your leg go numb. No, there's no like pins and needles. It's just like, if I were to go into my arm, it'd be as if I felt nothing. It'd be like nothing just did that. Which sometimes is how I test this theory of if I'm dissociating or if I just am in a weird mood. Because if I feel it, then for me personally, I know I'm not. I know for other people this isn't a factor with theirs, but for me it's a steady thing every time. So yeah, that's usually my big tip-off. But it carried on until late afternoon, and just as quickly as it came on, snapped out of it all of a sudden, was like, okay, well, I'm glad that's over, but it takes a bit to bounce back from those. And literally my entire week ever since has more or less been kinda effed up because of it, and I've just not been in the greatest place mentally for it. Like I said, even though it was completely 100% over in the same day, it does screw with your brain chemistry on a level to where it does take a while to reel yourself back in and get back to normalcy. So it's kind of like with depressive states where you do snap out of it, but it takes a while to bounce back. It's kind of like that, but doesn't take as long to bounce back from, at least for me personally. I can't speak for anyone else's experiences, but yeah, so that was weird, and I don't enjoy having those. Luckily, it's not that frequent of a thing that I deal with, so there's that. It's not like something that happens every time those images crop up in the media. It's usually when it's an unexpected happening of it, combined with me not being able to either just turn it off or to get away from it. Because usually, either I will opt to not watch it, and that'll be that. Or if it's something that, for some reason, I actively did want to watch, I know about it going into it, and therefore am okay with it, and it's kind of like my mind gave consent to being okay with viewing these images. I don't know, this probably doesn't make sense to anyone but me, but that seems to be the difference in which things trigger it off and which ones don't. So, it's an odd thing. I'm an odd person. This is not news to anyone, so that was a thing, and that was why just this week I have not been able to get into the swing of normalcy all week. And I just realized tomorrow is Monday, so it's literally been a whole week. And I'm only just finally starting to get back into the groove of just normal day-to-day stuff again. I mean, some of my Etsy orders that normally wouldn't even take me, like, half a day to complete took me half the week to get through just because I've just felt so out of it and just not really with it ever since. And as you guys have seen from my channel, usually I film and upload every day, and I haven't hardly uploaded anything this week because I have just not been able to get with the program. So I'm finally starting to get there, so thank you for hanging with me. I have a couple other things I'm going to talk about in this vlog too. I did manage to get out and go to the library, which was a first in, I think, possibly 2 years. I've done the ebook thing from the library since then, but actually going to the library, I think, is the first in a couple years, because there was that whole library fine from hell that I only just finally got paid off, I think, last year, and that's when I started getting the ebooks from there. But this is the first time I actually went there and got something since then. Sorry, my nose is itchy. But yeah, I don't remember if I've told the story on this channel or not about the library fine from hell, but if I haven't, let me know, and I would be happy to make a video about that because it was so crazy. But I feel like I did, but at the same time, I could be mixing this up with a Tumblr post that I know I made about it on my old blog. So it's hard to say for sure. I'd have to look through my videos, and frankly, I am a lazy person. So I will trust you guys to inform me one way or the other. Is that a thing that I've talked about here before? Because I'm not sure if it is or not, but regardless, what prompted my going there was I was actually watching a review right here on YouTube for a completely unrelated book, and somebody mentioned something about Hilary Duff and made a Lizzie McGuire joke, and the other person they were making the video with was just like, oh yeah, she writes books now. And they were like, wait, really? And it sounded like the punchline to a joke, but it turns out she actually legit does write books now. And when I found that out, I was like, No shit, really? So I went over to Goodreads.com, which I'm a huge fan of. This is not the first time I've mentioned that anywhere. And I typed in her name just to see how many books she's got, and apparently there's 3. And I was like, really? Okay. And I just kind of glimpsed the plots of each one without going too far into them because I don't want to be totally spoilered on them. I was like, they sound intriguing enough. So then I checked the website for my local library, and it turned out that we have all 3 of them. And not only did we have all 3 of them, but all 3 were available. So pretty much immediately I was like, Dad, get in the car, we're going to the library. And like, I got him to drop everything for this, which usually I'm not that lucky. I really lucked out that morning, because usually he has other shit to do and he's like, yeah, bug me about it tomorrow. Give me like 24 hours notice on this. So yeah, that was a huge rarity that I actually got him to just pick up and go. Also a rarity for me to actually be okay with just picking up and going and doing a thing spur of the moment, because normally I'm not okay with that because I'm agoraphobic. So yeah, that was kind of a big deal, although to be fair, I was probably in and out of there in record time. I ran in there, like, well, maybe not ran, but power walked in there, went straight to the section, grabbed all 3 books. They all happened to be right there in a row. Grabbed them, did self-checkout, and was out of there in under a minute. This is not an exaggeration. I legit was in and out there hella fast. This also helps that it was like 10 in the morning and frickin' no one was in there, so that also... I mean, I suppose since there was nobody in there, there was probably not much point in rushing, because I didn't have to deal with people. That's usually my issue of just not wanting to deal with people, so... Yeah, so I was really happy with that. I've admittedly only just started the first one, so I can't really say fairly yet if they're any good or not just yet, but I was intrigued that the very first thing in the very first book, it literally starts off with the chick having a panic attack, and I was like, alright, I already associate with this, but then by the next page, it's just obsessing over boys, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be one of those kind of books. And immediately probably lost like at least half my interest just right there, but at the same time I did go to the trouble of going and getting these, so I'm going to read them anyway, and I've got high hopes that it'll turn out to be something more than just that type of tripe that seems to be oh so common in YA fiction, but it's hard to say for sure. I have a feeling that it probably isn't much more, but on the other hand, in the few reviews that I've found of Hillary's writing, people pretty much only have good things to say about it. So I mean, my highs are hope. My hopes are high that it lives up to the expectation that actually is something more to this here, because I don't think they'd be saying that she's that good of a writer if it were really just mediocre crap, you know? So yeah, there's that. And then the other thing, let me grab them just real quick, yeah? Sorry, my pants were like slipping down the back. I was like, I don't want to moon you guys. So, okay. I scored probably the best find I have had in a long time. Actually, not off of eBay for once, but off of the Mercari app. The entirety of the Beatles Anthology. All 8 tapes of it, like new condition, I paid $12. Now, for VHS tapes, most of you are like, yeah, because nobody has a VCR anymore. Yeah, I have 3. But, but anyway, that wouldn't seem like a big deal. But I had this first time around when it first came out and paid about $160 for it when it was brand new. And I would still have that copy of it, but that's one of the things that I had stolen from my collection when we had our house broken into like 4 years ago. So I'm still slowly rebuilding that collection a piece at a time, but this was actually one of the bigger ticket items that they got a hold of mine. So I am actually really, really stoked to have this again. And to be fair, I do have the DVD version of it as well, but they omitted certain things that were on the VHS version of it. They're not in the DVDs. They also threw in some things on the DVDs that weren't on the VHS copies, so there is some value to having both versions of it, especially if you're a collector at heart like I am. So, I mean, that is a thing, but, mostly it was just a matter of wanting to have my stuff back, even if it is not exactly the same literal copy that I had. It is a copy of them, and granted, I haven't actually tested the tapes yet to make sure that they are in as good of condition that they claim they are, but all of the jackets look like they're in really good condition. They don't look like they have heavy wear on them or anything. The tapes, I mean, I took the tapes out to look at them. It doesn't look like any of them have particularly heavy wear on them either, so I do have high hopes for it, especially since something that's that long of a documentary, most people don't tend to watch and rewatch too terribly many times. I'm just kind of a freak that way. I was the weirdo that when it first aired on ABC back in 1995, I taped all 3 parts of it because they spread it out over 3 nights in 2-hour segments. And I actually watched and rewatched those tapes religiously until I could recite it forwards and backwards. Without the tapes even being on, I could recite all 6 hours of that. And then they released the VHS tapes. And that was a big deal because turns out that the 6 hours they aired was not the entire thing. That was a much abridged version of it. So I'm over here like, holy shit, I want to see all the things, I want to learn all the things, which I did, and then obsessed just as hard over those tapes until some of them started to self-destruct, and I actually had to replace some of them through eBay. But, yeah, tapes number 4 and 7, fair warning, they're prone to self-destruction, so I will go gentle on them this time, but, yeah, it is a thing that was a well-known thing with those 2 particular tapes in the sets, but, yeah, so I am that type of fan who just memorizes things for the sake of memorizing things, but anyway, yeah, I'm just really happy to have it in my collection again. I got the DVDs replaced a while back, so, I mean, that's cool, but I really wanted these because these are a lot harder to come by these days, not only just in its entire form like this, but in as good a condition as this, because a lot of them, they got beaten up just normal wear and tear after about 20 years, so yeah, it's pretty rare to have them in this good a condition, and I also feel really old at realizing this is over 20 years old now. And I remember when it came out, and I was in 5th grade. I feel really old. Which, to be fair, I kind of am really old, but oh well. But yeah, so I just wanted to share my excitement at getting this back into my collection again, because I honestly didn't think I was ever gonna probably be lucky enough to own it again. So I'm very thankful for that. I have a feeling the person who sold it probably didn't realize the true value of what they were selling, but again, VHS tapes generally, even if they're rarer ones, you can typically find for really cheap now, especially on like auction sites, but Mercari isn't an auction site, it's just set prices, so. But yeah, I mean, pretty much my entire Dudley Moore collection originally was all on VHS tapes just because it was cheaper that way, and I didn't worry about upgrading to DVDs until later on because it cost more. But yeah, you can literally, if it doesn't bother you that much and you're into more vintage things like I am, it's actually worth it sometimes to go for the VHS copies if you still have a working VCR, but being the collector I am, I do like having all the versions of all the things, and this is why I perpetually have no money, but beside the point. So yeah, just really happy about that. About the only real flaw I see on it, besides the corners being a little bit worn, is that it does have a couple of scratches in the label on the top, but I can live with that. As long as it plays fine, that's what matters, and the picture is still just fine across the sides and across the front. And that's, like, to me, the most important part, because on the DVDs, being so slimmed down, and they also did it on fewer discs than they did tapes, it kind of really cramped that picture down to where it wasn't the same to have it out on display. So this is probably honestly going to be more of a display piece for me than a functional thing, but anyway. I'm kind of babbling, but I just wanted to let you guys know that I am still here. I have not abandoned YouTube or anything. I meant to get this film actually a couple days ago and didn't get around to it because of reasons I already mentioned, but meant to do it earlier today even and just procrastinated. So in the upcoming days, I do still need to make the other 3 comparison videos for this guy, and then I'll get moving on with reviews of different products. But yeah, so I still have to compare it to these 3 guys here, and then more new reviews. So thank you for hanging with me. Thank you for being as patient with me as you guys are. You guys are awesome, and I shall most probably see you guys tomorrow, but if not, probably the next day. But I am going to be aiming for tomorrow for getting those comparison videos up.